Peace, 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 peace of mind, and love divine. Slide on in, get comfortable, grab your whatever you need to grab. Grab what feels good to you. And go on and make yourself comfortable and get ready for a good, breathtaking understanding. You know, we as people can be suffering, or we as people could be glorified. So we need to understand why and why not. If we are and if we are not. And so everything begins with what we need to begin with. And it's the beginnings of all beginnings. And this beginning is to understand your being. My intent is for you to understand your being. Your being is very special. But you don't know it's very special. Because commentators, critics, criticizers, analyzers, third-party perspectives are infested in your mind. You have to learn. I know you heard of the law of attraction, but of course that's not true and exact, so it's not going to be able to uphold throughout permanence. Its only existence is for temporal existence and not for infinity. So as we move through the infinity, you don't want to get stuck. If you don't move through infinity, you will get stuck in the waters of darkness. And these waters of darkness is akin to not knowing the knowledge of self. If you remain ignorant to yourself, then you are to blame, not someone distracting you. So we have to understand gaslighting, hormone increasement, cognitive enhancements. We need to understand that any form of harm is a form of cognitive trauma. And cognitive trauma is the beginning of all mind viruses, which are called mind poisoning. So we have to understand, if you see this imagery, that is being mind poisoned, where you cannot go any further, but in your mind you think you're going somewhere. But that's not so. See, and this has been an encapsulation of those who want to understand. So if one wants to know and understand, then we must know and understand. And what is it that we must know and understand? We must know and understand that we need the right starting point. So this subject, this intention is about on the right starting point. This is why people are having trouble, because their starting point is wrong. If you start wrong, you never get to truth. You wasn't birthed wrong, so you shouldn't start wrong. Birth is the start of understanding the correct beginning point. The right starting point is the correct beginning point. The beginning is the beginning of your being. And as you was birthed into being, there's a whole understanding that comes with that prior to birth and then post-birth. But during birth, you experienced a trauma. And it was a cognitive trauma. And this cognitive trauma was you coming into the physical world. So when you came into the physical world, that world was different from the world you left from. When you came into this world, you had to be birthed into this world. And in order to be birthed, that is called a trauma. And so since it was your first birth of your body being, this was a cognitive trauma. So this cognitive trauma, it flashed out, blacked out our whole prior understanding of what we were prior to a body. So prior not knowing our existence to the body, we became what this world or what this society was built on. So society created a divergent, which is a diagonal crossing away from your original intent. So when these understandings are done to self, then self-effect is self's life. So in order to correct self, we must correct the starting point. And to help you, here is the answer. The correct starting point is self. Self is where you begin to understand your being. Everything that is not self is a distraction. So if you are into any type of information and then that information is not containing self-knowledge, then that information is not knowledge. It's just information informing you of another structure. But self-knowledge is the only knowledge that permeates the self and gives self-fulfillment everlastingly. So it's not having a job as the correct starting point. It's not making more children as the correct starting point. It's not having many women as the correct starting point. It's not marrying to be a starting point. It's not divorcing to be a starting point. It's not money to be a starting point. It's not another house, clothes, shoes. Any of that is not the starting point. Not the right starting point. Those are called not self. So when you come into the academy, you learn these high-level skills. And these high-level skills will produce you a high-level way of life. What we call a lifestyle. But we have to first understand we have been beginning at the wrong starting points. And this is why we feel unsatisfied. The more we get, the less we feel satisfied. And that's because of the starting point. The starting point is wrong. So the math is off. And it's always going to be off until we understand balance. So once we begin at self as the correct starting point, now this is what is the solution to all your preconceived problems. All problems are cognitive traumas. Cognitive traumas are mind viruses. So when I say mind virus, that means anything done not on the physical, not on the metaphysical, that these things do not belong to those realms. So it's no medicine that you can take to fix a mind virus. There's nothing physically you can do in the form of a physical form that can cure a mind virus. No pill, no pharmaceutical will cure the mind virus. And the mind virus is the highest level of sorcery and magic placed upon the people, who all do not know that the correct starting point is self. This is how you know that the magic has been placed upon your psyche. So if this is so, then one must cleanse their own psyche. And this takes your effort, just like it takes your effort to go to work. And so when you are ready to work on you, you come to me so you can get the knowledges you need and understand that these things are therapeutics and treatments by the only way that you can be healed. So food can't heal it. Anything in the physical can't heal a mind virus. And so we have to understand the correct starting point is self. We don't need to go no further than self. The beginning is birth. And at the beginning of birth was self. Self is the starting point and the solution to all of your cognitive problems. So there's a whole understanding, and just through understanding alone, these things are cured. But there's only one thing to be understood, and that's truth over stand. So the starting point, the correct starting point, is the beginning point of the self. The self is the correct starting point. Peace, peace, love, divine.